Hello and welcome to Not Mousetrap. Hi, how can I?
Hello? Don't be scared. Horace just wants to go skiing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of GameHammer. We're changing things up this week. We'll look at several games at once rather than just one. It's the first in a series I'm going to call Mascot Wars, and we're going to dip in and out of this on an irregular basis. Today's mascot is Horace. He's the weird looking guy that turned up in a lot of ZX Spectrum games. And yes, he did turn up on the C64 as well, and the Scion Series 3 if I remember correctly. But he became the kind of unofficial mascot for the Spectrum. So today on the Mascot Wars, he's representing the Specky. Let's start by acknowledging something right off the bat. Horace looks weird, like really weird. His eyes are in his chest and he's got no head. What's he supposed to be? An alien? A mutant? A regular guy who's had a really nasty accident? Who knows? I can tell you one thing though, when it comes to mascots, the look of Horace is certainly memorable. After all, how can you forget something that looks so strange? Look at him on the cover of his first game and tell me that image won't forever be burned into your eye sockets. What is he, a bum on legs? A pig snout that sprouted limbs? He's just a really weird design. And yes, I recognise that early Spectrum games, especially the ones that were designed to be runnable on the 16K machine, didn't have a huge amount of memory that you could waste on complex graphics. But come on guys, if you're going to spend the time to code something like Horace, who's going to be large on your screen, at least put a little bit of effort into making him look something that's just not nightmare inducing. And here's another thing, take a look at the enemies in this first game. They're clear, recognisable human heads, so obviously Horace's appearance is intentionally weird. I wouldn't be surprised if Spectrum kids had nightmares over this guy and his cold dead eyes, because I know I will. Speaking of nightmares, Horace's first game starts with brain-destroying sound effects. It's basically static, and it's supposed to entice you into playing the game? Standards must have been very, very different back in 1982. But if standards for music have changed, programmers' tolerance for nicking ideas from each other certainly haven't. This game is a blatant Pac-Man rip-off, complete with items to make eating your enemies possible, and even fruit to collect. At first I thought the enemies could teleport around the screen in order to kill you, but then I realised it's just early attempts at a multi-level maze. It's still infuriating though, because there's a delay between going into a tunnel, teleport, whatever, and coming out the other side, which is often just enough time for an enemy to catch up with you. I get that a game needs to have some level of difficulty, as if the god-awful key bindings weren't going to give you enough of that already, but come on guys. Oh, and the key bindings really are stupid. Q to move up, but Z to move down? That's annoying enough. But then there's P to move right, which is okay because that became something of a standard on the Z88 bits. So what's the key to move left? Is it O? That would make sense. What with it being next to P? But nope, you'd be wrong if you tried it. It's I instead. Lovely. Now, I get it that the standard keyboard bindings haven't coalesced by 1982. I really do. But that still doesn't excuse leaving a gap between the left and right keys, or a gap between the up and down keys, now I think about it. The only reason I can think of for doing that is to give some space to large-fingered players who were using the Spectrum's hideous rubber keyboard. But even then it's going to lead to problems, because your hand naturally rests on the keyboard with one finger on I, one finger on O, and one finger on P. And that means you'll be forever pressing O to go left, even though it's the wrong key. The game itself is playable, and to an extent it's quite enjoyable. The mazes are interesting, and once you've turned off the sound, it's quite fun to play for a while. It's not a game that you'll come back to time and time again, but it's nice, and it's quite fun. It's also colourful, which is good for a game of its age, and when there's only one enemy on the screen, it's a very fast-paced bit of fun. The problem is when there's more than one enemy on screen. Once a second enemy appears, the entire game slows down immensely. It's still playable, but it's nowhere near as good an experience as it was before. It's slow, it's clunky, and it's annoying. So that's Horace's first outing, and it's a passable game for its time. So what happened to Horace next? Well, after he wasn't hungry anymore, he decided to go skiing. So let's see how that turned out. If there's one game from this trilogy that's stuck with me over the years, it's Horace Goes Skiing. I first played this when my cousin got a ZX Spectrum with a couple of games bundled with it. It's a simple premise, and the game is little more than two mini-games stuck together. But it's really good fun. The game begins in the same way as the first game, with ear-destroying title screeching and flashing text. If you're epileptic, the early years of computer gaming must have been hell. Anyway, once you get past the assault on the sensors, you're presented with a rather passable Frogger clone. The object of this section of the game is to get from one side of the road to the other to hire some skis. Once you've got your skis, it's time to cross the road again and get back to the skis club. Apparently in Horace's world, the ski supply shop is located across a busy motorway from where the skis will actually be used. It's probably a conspiracy between the ski shops and the local ambulance service, since every time you get knocked down, you have to pay the ambulance to take you to the hospital.
Hey,
What?
we don't talk about the ski ambulance business, capiche?
Okay.
Capiche?
How did you even get in my office?
Looks like we'll have to do this the hard way.
Ah!
Uh-oh.
How'd you like it now, huh? How'd you like it now? So anyway, once you've managed to navigate your way back to the starting point, you get to go skiing. This is by far the most fun part of the game, and it works really well. I had a lot of fun playing this section. It's smooth, Horace looks pretty good in his skis, and the little jumps are a nice touch. There are a couple of minor gripes, but one of them is, I think, simply down to my own perspective. Whenever I tried to navigate Horace, I was constantly thinking of the directions from his point of view. I would forever be pressing the right key to move him to the right from his perspective, which would be left when looking at the game in terms of which direction on the screen that he would be going. Maybe that's because I'm too used to playing modern games that do take their controls from the perspective of the character, but it would have been nice to have the option to switch the controls around for the skiing section. The other gripe is definitely the game's problem, however. When you get too close to a tree, you crash, even though you could have feasibly slid right past it. The collision detection is based on the rectangle of screen that the tree is in, not the actual position of the tree. That's annoying, and it means you have to give the trees a wider berth than you otherwise should. But aside from these two minor problems, the skiing section is a really good part of the game, and I've had a soft spot for it ever since I played it on my cousin's Rubber Key Spectrum back in the 80s. So, can Horace beat this high note for his next outing? Let's find out. Ah! Seriously, it's been 3 games now. When will this crime against sound stop? The Spectrum can do better sound from this. It's ridiculous. And what's with the change in title? Horace and the Spider? Singular? The cover clearly says spiders, as in plural. Just how many spiders should we be expecting here? Surely it's not just one. We've paid good money for this game, £5.95 in 1983 money, or £14.95 if we wanted it on disc. So we're due more than one spider here, guys. When the game starts, it looks like we're only getting one spider. This is a very simple section of a 3 minigame game. Basically, you just need to jump over this spider and run toward a bit of higher ground. There's not a lot to it, but don't be fooled, because jumping over that spider isn't as easy as it might sound. The collision detection issues from Horace Goes Skiing are present here as well. So anyway, once you get past the spider, you go on to the next level of the game. It's a cave, and you need to get across from one ledge to the other by jumping on the threads those spiders at the top of the screen are casting down. Don't hang around too long on any thread, however, because if you do, you'll get pulled up to the top of the screen, and no amount of wriggling around will stop that. If you get pulled up too far and touch a spider, you lose a serum, which I'm presuming means the spiders were biting old Horace, and you have to start the level all over again. If you manage to get to the other side of the screen, you beat the level and go on to the final part of the game, and it's at this point that you realise this is a really short, really simple game. So far, there's about a minute or two's worth of gameplay to the whole thing, whereas Horace Go Skiing had a lot more to it, and Hungry Horace was basically a series of Pac-Man-style minigames. It's as if the amount of playability for these games goes down progressively as the series goes on. So what's the final level of Horace and the Spider's got for us? Is it enough gameplay to warrant a £19 in today's money price tag? In a word, no. The final level is a complete rip-off of Space Panic, that old arcade game where you cut holes in the floor to trap aliens and then kill them. Amstrad fans will remember this as Roland Goes Digging, which the CPC provided as a complete game in its own right. Here we find Horace wandering up and down some rickety platforms, climbing between them on spiderwebs. If you press one of several keys, you can stop Horace moving for a brief second, and he'll start jumping up and down. Do this enough, and you'll make a hole in the platform, which a spider can get trapped in. Then, you'll have to jump up and down on the spider to make it drop down. Do this twice per spider, and it will die. Once you've cleared all the spiders out, which can take anything between 2 and 5 minutes depending on whether the spiders want to play along or not, you're rewarded an extra serum and you go back to the first level to play the game through again. And that's it. That's the whole game. I literally completed this on my second try and got through the whole game in less than 5 minutes. There's hardly anything here, and it certainly doesn't have the staying power of Horace Goes Skiing. So it's a real shame that Horace and the Spiders is the last we'll see of old Horace for 12 whole years. There was supposed to be another game in 1985, but that got cancelled due to the fact that the programmer had a collapsed lung. And I think we can all agree that's a really, really good reason to have stopped making a game, and I hope that he got better. But the next time we'd see old Horace wouldn't even be on the Spectrum, it would be on a PDA in 1995. Sadly, I can't show you footage from that game because I don't have a Scion Series 3 to give it a try. Instead, we're looking at the ZX Spectrum port. This is Horace and the Mystic Woods. The game is a Manic Miner clone, and here we're looking at the 2010 remake for the Spectrum. It's even using the Manic Miner sound effects for this remake. It's a fun game, and the remake is even based on the original source code, so that's a plus. So there we have it, The Adventures of Horace, the closest thing that the Spectrum has to a mascot, despite the fact that most of his games came out in other formats as well. I recommend that you give Horace Go Skiing a try. It's a lot of fun. I really do like it even after all these years. And if you've got a few more minutes to kill, give Horace and the Mystic Woods a try as well. The ZX Spectrum port in 2010 was really, really good. It's a lot of fun. Now, as for the others, well, Spiders is lacking in any playability or replayability. And if you're going to play a Pac-Man game, you might as well play a Pac-Man rather than Hungry Horace, because it's got a lot more Pac-Man to it. But still, 2 games out of 4, that's pretty good. I hope you enjoyed revisiting The Adventures of Horace, and if you did, remember to click that like button, share this with your friends so that they can revisit some good old games too, and do subscribe for future videos because there will be more in the future. But until next time, I've been Zoe Kirk-Robinson, you've been watching GameHammer on the Knob Mouse channel, and I'll see you next time.